I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Southwest Magazine. When Genevieve Hennessey moved to her husband's home province of New Brunswick, she didn't simply make a home on Deer Island. She began imagining what else the island could become. An author, entrepreneur, and community builder, Genevieve is the creator of the Legends Lost book series and the driving force behind Legends Fun Factory, a new family entertainment destination featuring mini golf, a retro arcade, batting cages, and sweeping views of the Deer Island coastline. But her investment in the island extends well beyond one business, from helping develop the scenic lookout at Deer Island Point to launching the Deer Island Comedy Fest. Genevieve has been finding creative ways to bring people together, create local jobs, and give visitors new reasons to discover the island. Today on Southwest Magazine, we'll talk about falling in love with the island, building a business in a small and sometimes overlooked community, and why economic development can begin with something as simple and as powerful as creating a place where people can have fun. Thank you so much, Genevieve, for coming into the studio today and making the trip to St. Andrews.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful drive this morning, a little foggy on the ferry, but it was completely clear by the time I got to St. Andrews. Thanks so much for the invite.
Well, I had a privilege, along with Lucas and Sasha from CHCO, to go to the Legends Fun Factory, and what a blast. We could have stayed even longer. I think we were there for half the day, mini putting in the batting cages, in the retro arcade, and what you've created is just unbelievable for Deer Island, and not just Deer Island, for New Brunswick. I can't believe the number of questions I got just from taking photos and posting them on social media, but where is this? I want to go. So I mean, it's incredible that this began July 1st.
That's right. I really have to give a shout out to my husband, who is a little camera shy and always in the background, but he designed it himself. He pulled on all sorts of local contractors. All the contractors, if not from Deer Island, were from Charlotte County. So it's very much sort of, it's a home-based idea, and we really stuck with the local theme of who was helping us build it. Yeah.
We're gonna get in this show into your backstory, what brought you to Deer Island, and all the projects you are involved with. But I really do want to kick off the show by sharing some of that footage of Sasha and Lucas and myself experiencing Fun Factory, because it is not just fun, it's also incorporating some of the artists from the community as well. What you've designed there is aesthetically beautiful as well. What went into creating the concept for it?
When we designed the mini putt, actually, when we started, it was going to be a house for someone on the island, because housing, there is a need for housing on Deer Island, and it was going to be 9 holes of mini golf, just free for the island kids and, you know, sort of anybody young at heart. And people started showing up, and people were out of work. It was a very tough winter for most of the people on the island. It wasn't a great couple of lobster catches. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in that. It's just, you know, the feeling on the island and people needing work. So the contractors who in the off season typically did do construction, they were really, really hungry for work this winter. So we looked at the talents that were on the island, and when I found out that almost everyone was a fiberglass expert, and that's a huge component of the mini putt, all the different, like the great white shark and the humpback whale that's breaching through hole number 10. All of those were created by Deer Islanders, who are usually boat builders. So they really had to have faith in themselves and faith in us, that we really did believe that, no, your talent can do this. We could take your talent from boat building and turn it into like a world-class miniature golf course. And we pulled on some of the other artists, like woodpecker wood carvings. Frankie did such an amazing job on the totem pole that really captures some of the animal characters from my book, and he built an amazing lobster that just sort of towers over that hole on the 9th hole. So it's not just a miniature golf course. It's almost like an interactive, immersive art exhibit that people are taking pictures at every hole, because there's something amazing at almost every one.
Oh my good. I mean, that's why I'm so excited to have you here today, because again, it's just beautiful. And the concept of it, beyond even the carving, and Frankie, everybody knows Frankie's artwork, especially if you've been to the New River Beach sand sculpting.
That's right.
He's often, I think, a winner there, brings his carving to sand as well. So you're showcasing the talent that we have in this area, especially the talent on Deer Island. But on top of that, yes, creating jobs as well.
Yeah.
How did you initially go at the design of Legends Fun Factory? Because it is stunning, and on top of that, It includes information from your book series, so it brings people into your own creative endeavors, but it also teaches people about the island at every hole too. We were learning about nature, and that's why I want people to go experience it, because it shows you can do something in a small community like ours that really is this special if you can put that much thought and community-minded thinking into it.
And when you're centered on community and you're centered on employment and economic opportunities, there's almost a spiritual guidance to it. When you're doing something for the right reason, which was to give back to the community, not everyone knows that we're a social impact company, so all of the profits, when we make a profit, will go back into the community, whether it's through more employment and expanding operations at the Fun Factory, or it's another community development project. And right now we do have some other projects that are being discussed, but right now we're 100% focused on getting the Fun Factory up to sort of full capacity and realizing, how many people we can actually have come through there every day. When it comes to the design, my husband loves my book, because he's my husband and he has to love my book. And he really wants the rest of the world to read it. So he approached the design of the miniature golf from what can I incorporate from the book, and to just sort of maybe hook the odd person into stopping into the clubhouse and buying a copy of the book. But also because it was tied to the area, even though I did most of my career, or I spent most of my career elsewhere, not in Atlantic Canada, I set the book in Washington County in Maine and in Charlotte County on the New Brunswick side. And sort of when I describe scenic, when I describe the scenery in the book, it's very much the scenery that I was looking at when I was writing the book, because I wholly wrote the book in New Brunswick, even though I've only moved here permanently in 2023. My husband moved sooner than that to establish our home, to build it and sort of make a life for ourselves here. I was wrapping up some contracts back in Ontario. Sometimes I travel back and forth, but I haven't been back in a while. This has really kept us busy for the last year. When you came and visited last summer about the Lookout, we really haven't had a day off since then. And my husband for sure hasn't had a day off since then. From building the Lookout, we rolled right into building the Fun Factory. But he designed it he also talked to the contractors that we were going to utilize on the construction job. And they had some great ideas too. When you get people talking in a way where every idea has merit and nobody shuts down a pathway of thinking, you get the Fun Factory. That's what happens. Oh, you know what would be really good? An arcade. Okay, let's research that. Let's figure out if that'll work here. And when it came to the actual design on the land, both my husband and I were registered professional foresters. So when we look at land, we can see past the trees and we can see the rock and we can see where something would fit, because that's what you kind of have to do when you're planning a harvest block. So we cut down a total of 3 trees to build the Fun Factory, because trees are important to my husband and I, and certain species of trees have more value. Red spruce trees, for example, that wood is highly sought after by musicians because of the acoustic properties. So you'll get violins and cellos and instruments like that. So I have a reverence for red spruce, even though it grows only here. I never saw it back in Ontario or anywhere else in the boreal forest where I spent most of my time. And cedar trees have a particular spiritual significance to the indigenous population, so we were trying to make sure that we didn't have to cut down any cedar trees. So when it came to why things are where they are, the land spoke to my husband and told him where to put each sort of component of the Fun Factory. So we really listened to the land as to how we were going to design it.
And it's apparent from the moment you walk in. The entryway draws you in almost like you're walking into a forest.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's special when I see this as a community-minded project. It's not just the people. You've incorporated the island itself into the design. So when you are standing at the mini putt trying to get a hole-in-one, you're also looking out at this breathtaking scenery, and it's showcasing the island for everything that it is. And when I went to see the location last fall that you were building, I just can't believe that was
the same land.
The same land.
Yeah.
And also that you're able to do this in this amount of time and create something this special.
Yeah. My husband, if anyone's read the book, there's a chapter in the book called The Interview, and it was very easy to write because it was exactly how I was interviewed coming out of university for the company where my husband worked at the time. And so right from that day when I started working for him, it was, this is the speed that we do things at. You need to move quickly. One of the characters in the book is the old man, and that's what he's affectionately referred to in the book. And he is a real person. My husband and I both worked for him, and one of his sayings, or one of his mantras to us, was time kills deals. So if you don't capture a deal, if you don't capture an opportunity, time will not be your friend. So we needed to be open. We started in November, really December, because November was a lot of just a dumping of rock to level out certain areas of the fun factory. So December to June the 19th, that's how long it took. And it was wild trying to procure all of the materials needed, to secure all the people that we needed to help us with that. And that was another function of why it needed to be local. It needed to be people who were used to this environment, used to just issues with the ferries and getting materials to the island. We needed islanders, and they really showed up in full force. Most of them are still working on certain aspects of it today, and they want to be part of our next project. So yeah, lots of support from the island.
And I have to ask, to give people that background, how your husband grew up in New Brunswick.
That's right, yeah.
How did you end up from having a career in forestry with him to moving back to his home province and then adopting Deer Island as your home?
So my husband has Passamaquoddy lineage. He doesn't have his status card. I think so many people in New Brunswick, you go far back enough, this is the first place everybody landed. So there's a lot of amazing history and stories here. And he has always been interested in his ancestry. Since before the internet made it easy, he was looking back at his ties, and he always wanted to go home. I don't think he ever wanted to leave New Brunswick, but when he graduated from high school, there was no work, and so he found his way to Ontario. He had an amazing career with a very large forestry company in Ontario, one that I would compare the forestry operations to Irving, privately owned, very similar company that we worked for in Ontario, privately owned, very similar size, if not a little bit bigger on the forestry end. And I was so young and so inexperienced, and the career that I was privileged enough to experience was solely because I got to work at that company, and a big part of working for my husband. And we worked together up until the 2008 banking crisis, and the company we were working for, it came apart. And he went into government and I went into the private sector. We found ourselves on the same project at one point in time, and it was a very significant project in Ontario. It was the purchase of a pulp mill, looking for a new owner, and it really needed to run, otherwise a whole bunch of communities were going to be impacted for generations. And then I guess the story kind of writes itself after that. We got reconnected. We both found ourselves single at that point, and romance ensued after that. And he asked me to marry him in 2018, and we got married in 2020, and I didn't realize that he had this piece of land and that he really wanted to come home. That was always in his mind. And Deer Island was I almost want to use the word a spiritual place for him. It was somewhere that he knew that his Indigenous grandmother visited. His grandfather and grandmother made sure that he knew of the area, even though he grew up in the Miramichi. All of his family, all the Hennesseys, were from Charlotte County, and Deer Island was a special place. And he felt, I remember the first time we visited the island, he was overcome with emotion. He felt something. It's so powerful that we left the island and went back the next day, and he said, I want to buy this land. And he, in his head, he kept that to himself for a little while. And I've always been up for adventure, and I was actually kind of surprised that I ended up in Thunder Bay for as long as I did. I always saw myself, when I was in my 20s, I'm I'm going to go here, or I'm going to go there. So finding myself out here on a new adventure is amazing. And the people of Deer Island have been more than welcoming. Not just welcoming, they want to know me. They want to know that one statement that you said earlier, I'm from away. I never would have thought that I would have said that sentence before. And I get it a fair bit. My husband definitely has a presence about him that people understand that he's from here, even though he spent most of his life in Ontario. And I love it because I get to meet new people and talk to a lot of people on the island too.
Well, I know as a writer, when you write about a place, it does become a part of you. Because you spend so much time thinking about it, and it really does become a piece of who you are. So when you incorporated Deer Island in this part of the world into the Legends Lost book series. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about how it unfolded and how you started writing it and what inspired it.
So earlier I was talking about my career, and sometimes when I think about it, I can't believe I worked on some of the projects I worked on, whether it was because I was so inexperienced at the time, or it ended up being a project of national attention. And so I worked on a bunch of projects that were relatively controversial, and I saw a side of business that I think I was naive to when I first got into acquisitions and mergers, and that's when you're buying and selling billion-dollar assets, it becomes a different world, and not a world I was introduced to in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And Thunder Bay is a beautiful spot. It'll always be my hometown, and it's very much an island. There's different ways to live on an island. You can live on a piece of land that is surrounded entirely by water, or you can live somewhere that for 8 hours in every direction, it is rocks, trees, and water, rock, trees, and water. So there's different ways to deal with that isolation. So I don't feel isolated on Deer Island. There's so much in Charlotte County. That's amazing to look at. I haven't actually had a chance to see it all. I have not spent enough time in St. Andrews. Haven't spent enough time in like the New River Beach area and all those beautiful spots. And I'm having fun sort of exploring the islands. I've been to Campobello a handful of times too. That's another island that's been so supportive of what we're doing on Deer Island, because it's just a short ferry ride away. And you can go for a short day trip, hang out at the Fun Factory, and visit all the other businesses that are on Deer Island at the same time. So it's been an amazing journey. I'm still not too sure where the rest of it's going and where the next place will lead me, but I want to get back to the computer, because my second book is at the chapter 6 stage, and the Fun Factory was just all consuming for the winter, the spring, and really right up to now, because we're very much focused on marketing and trying to get the word out that we exist, that we're there. And but I'd like to get back to writing, because I'd like to get that last book out. It was a suggestion of my husband, because I was dealing with a lot of different emotions. Sometimes you see a part of humanity that not everybody sees when you're dealing with some of these projects, and I needed to get it out of my head and on paper, and I put it in a fiction setting, because I needed some freedom to. No one wants to hear from age 23 till now. I needed to sort of condense some of that experience. So of course it didn't flow like that, but every chapter, even the animal chapter. So that's a bit of a spoiler. So part of the book is in the spirit world, where animals are telling part of the story, and the remainder of the book is in the human world. And even in the animal chapters, there's a certain amount of actual truth to the experiences and the stories.
And sometimes fiction is the greatest avenue to showcase a truth.
Yeah, oh, exactly. It's almost a little bit more palatable. Even when I am answering questions about what projects I'm working on, even at the moment, it even surprises me. I'm like, how am I doing this? How am I negotiating on behalf of a community that does not want to see this gold mine happen? How do I know enough about mining to sit at the table and discuss that? And earlier when I said, if your intentions are pure, I don't know. Somehow you have to believe in the forces of the universe. You have to have enough faith in God that you're at the place and time that you're supposed to be. And so I kind of put all my nervousness and all of my insecurities aside, and I just listen to what needs to happen at whatever meeting I'm in, or with the Fun Factory, just go a little bit more into debt and find enough money to finish it. Like, you have to have faith when you're doing these projects of this size. When you're talking about $1 million, $1.5 million development, you have to be completely convicted to what you're doing. And I have to tell you, it was, I kind of broke halfway through it, and the only person who did not waver, did not ever lose sight of what he was doing, was my husband. And some days he did have to go to the Fun Factory and inspire everybody. No, what we're on, this is the path that is going to lead all of us to have a better life. Because if we can establish another economic sector on the island, it strengthens everybody trying to run a business. And it even strengthens the fisheries, because if more people are here, they have access to more labor. But if young families are leaving the island, it does not take very long for a community not to have the population it needs to sustain itself. And how can we let something like Deer Island change to that point? Because it's only a matter of time until that actually expands out further and families just keep leaving an area, and these amazing scenic places are sometimes forgotten about or treated like a drive-through island. That's not really my term, but it gets when I'm having discussions about business and economics on the island. No one understands, why do you get on the Campobello ferry just to race across Deer Island to get to the mainland? There's just so many amazing places to stop.
Well, I think just like the Legends Lost book showcase, it's all about interconnectivity, and I am obsessed with visionaries in Charlotte County. I think when we look back on the history of Charlotte County, who are we most obsessed with are these visionaries that saw something amazing in our part of the world and built up an industry. And it does take a little bit of risk, but it takes a lot of insight and a lot of creativity to see something that's not there. Another thing you saw and envisioned and brought to life was Deer Island Comedy Fest, which will be back for its second year. I got to go to the first one.
Yes,
and
that was amazing.
I feel so happy to be able to say that, because when you get to see something at its inception, that means you get to follow the whole story. And it was really the most beautiful experience. I have to tell you, on my way to it, I saw 3 chickens cross the road in front of me, and they said, you're going to a Deer Island Comedy Fest when you literally experience chickens crossing the road right before you're about to get the real jokes. But it was the most beautiful experience, because there we were. There was the Campobello Ferry in the background. This incredible venue that behind the comedians is just our bay.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And you brought in some incredible comedians. One happens to be your brother in Toronto, who is a wonderful stand-up. Tell us about that.
My brother is a very talented stand-up comedian. He has been signed with Yuck Yucks before. He's done voiceover for cartoons. He's an amazing actor, and he's really come out of his come into his own with puppets as well. I don't know if you were there for the kids show. So in addition, I did
miss the kids show, but Bobby Knuff is how I say his name properly.
That's right, Bobby Knuff, and he and Andre the Alien, his sidekick, last year did an interactive puppet show for the kids before the adult show in the evening. So we're going to do that again, but Bobby really threw himself into that show and was just all over with the kids. So we've decided we're going to do that Friday night of the August long weekend, and then August the 1st, the Saturday, that will be the comedian show. I say the adult show, but it's just, we want to say, they're stand-up comedians. So it's more for an adult audience, which is why we plan the kids show as well. But this year, the kids show is going to have a special guest, Harold the Sasquatch, which is over a 6-foot tall wearable puppet that Bobby has created. So it's going to be quite a show where the kids get to make their own puppets and interact with all the different characters that Bobby's going to bring. And then in the evening, Bobby's going to be the headliner, and he's brought 2 Atlantic Canadian comics, Sarah Graham and Dan Henriksen. I really hope I said his name right. They all have amazing bios, experience with Yuck Yucks, touring across Canada. So I think everyone's going to be in for a really fun night, and I would like to make that a yearly event. It is a free show. Legends hosts it. We just ask that people message ahead on Facebook or however, just get in touch with us, just so we know numbers.
So my goodness. And there's food trucks there. I had the greatest time because I had amazing fish and chips sitting right out looking at the ocean, hearing amazing stand-up, and also hearing from the comedians who are on stage, many of them experiencing not only Deer Island, but New Brunswick for the first time.
Yes.
And having gone whale watching. So you see that economic driver from that point of view too, bringing people now that get to go home, and people with big voices and a microphone, literally, to talk about experiencing this part of the world. Another spot near the Comedy Fest is the Lookout that you installed, just an incredible area that was already so special, but made it even more special. Tell people about that who haven't experienced the Lookout.
So the Lookout is a sort of a platform with a nice safe railing, but also like a finder goggles that were once on top of a building in downtown Toronto. Somebody else had them on Deer Island. It was amazing. They donated it to sort of to the effort. And that the Lookout actually, saved a part of the park that was eroding away. So we, shored up the we install rock to make sure that the erosion would stop, and then there's a nice concrete platform. Really, it's to showcase the old sow and the beautiful view of Eastport and Campobello Island. It's one of the most picturesque parks I have ever been to, and I have been right across this country. Especially during COVID, when I had a project up in the Northwest Territories, we stayed in campgrounds all the way from here all the way up to the Northwest Territories, and that still by far is one of the most beautiful parks I have ever seen. The view, it's amazing. So we wanted to, before we did something like the Fun Factory, we really needed to demonstrate to the people of the island that when we say we're going to do something, we're exactly going to do it. And so we wanted to start with a smaller project first, which resulted in the Lookout. We thought, investing in a park that's already such an important part of the community, that it could be another gathering place. It showcases Frankie's carving. He did a gorgeous bench that's there. Jim Dempsey and his crew built that oversized chair that there's a picture of you in. And it ended up just being something that I could point to and say, these are the type of projects that we can do, a real small scale. And then we made a really big jump to the Fun Factory right after that.
Well, Genevieve, I am so impressed by all the things you continue to undertake. I love following a visionary like yourself, so I can't wait to see what you're up to next. I love a girl who loves her community, so come back anytime. Thank you so much, Genevieve.
Thanks, Vicki. I really appreciate it.
My guest today has been Genevieve Hennessey, entrepreneur, author, and community-minded visionary on Deer Island. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.